Howdy howdy, Sudoval here, and this is episode 6 of my ladder battle series where we try to take what we've learned in my essential unit series and put it into action. In this battle I'm going to be facing the vampire counts, and as always I've got 2 units of gyrocopters with brimstone guns. These guys are fantastic against the vampires, and even if they field lots of flying units, which they can, and particularly Fellbats, which really are a hard counter to these gyrocopters, there's still things you can do. I mean, you can kite them back to your main units. I do have some quarrelers back there and can manage that situation. They're just a solid all-around unit. Now, on my main army, I've boxed up as always. I've got 3 Longbeards in the front. These guys are awesome. They're going to have 46 melee attack. They're going to hold any front line against any opponent. They're very, very strong. I've got my Thane out front. I want to use him just to stop some units from engaging in the front and to make use of his potions if I can. Now, the reason these quarters are going is I was actually trying to command my gyrocopters to go attack his Terrorgeist, which you'll see, but unfortunately I had the quarters selected and I was sending them to fight them and couldn't figure out why my buttons wouldn't work and just pressed it harder until I realized I had the wrong unit selected. Sometimes that happens. We all have those days. Anyhow, my Thane's out front. He's going to engage some units. These guys should be in the middle. Of course, I've got Thunders for anti-Lord duty, my Runesmith for his buffs, and his Rune of Wrath and Ruin if they have any ethereal units, and it's 44% damage mitigation, which is going to stop all the damage from charges or dive bombing or anything like that. And on my side, I've got my 2 units of Hodors as always, just to stabilize the flank until the rest of my units can get something done. My back, I've got a unit of Longbeards with great weapons. They're going to be my armor piercing infantry, and in the middle, Thorgrim with his 2 units of bodyguards. These slayers will be ready to collapse in if anyone tries to dive bomb him or head out if he has any monstrous unit. For his army, he has Manfred von Karstein on a flying mount, which you see this pretty often with the vampires, and he's got a Terrorgeist. First time I've come across a Terrorgeist in battle. He's over here, 2 units of Black Knights, 1 on each flank. These are obviously a lot more cost effective than the Blood Knights. I think they might be a really good unit. I've seen other people use them to pretty good effect rather than Blood Knights. 2 units of Crypt Horrors, which are very, very strong. He's got a Necromancer back here. On the ground, he's got some Graveguard with great weapons, which I think are an absolute necessity against the Dwarfs. They're so strong, armor piercing, excellent unit. One of the top tier infantry. I don't know where they'd fit in. I'll do some analysis on that at some point. And he's got some skeleton warriors, and 4 units of them. I don't think these are ever worth it. They just are such a weak unit. I don't know who they'd be good against. Maybe Bretonia, but they're super weak against the Dwarfs. You're better off, instead of getting 4 units of skeleton warriors, just to get I think a whole line of zombies just to tire out the front line or do something, or 1 more unit of anything. They're very, very weak, and they can't do much against the Dwarfs. So I've taken my gyrocopters. I'm going to attack his Terrorgeist. I know Manfred does heal over time, and I work out that if this guy is close to Manfred, he also heals over time, but I just want to get some harass on him early. I'll press play and get the battle started. Now, I've got my units on skirmish. I'm much faster. These guys are only 90. My gyros are 110, so I can kite them all day long. I see him pulling off. I'm going to work out that when he's trying to send one after another. Like, having 2 units is so powerful, even against 2-on-2 or even 2-on-3. being able to split them up can be very useful. And he decides to leave these gyros alone. I think I take a pot shot and then work out I need to go do my bombing run now. So I'm going to keep skirmishing against Manfred. I know he can't catch me. And I'm going to go do my bombing run. I want to get these Cryptors and Skeleton Warriors. I want to release both my bombs. And to my horror, these guys regenerate really fast. And you can see regeneration on their health bar. Not a good bombing target, apparently. You learn something new every day. In this battle I learned that Cryptors regenerate really fast. Bad choice unless you're going to kill them. Anyways, I hadn't figured this out yet until I just looked at this replay for the first time, and I'm still focusing on the Cryptors because they're large. And I'm trying to do another bombing run. Now I've released all my bombs. I can get my gyrocopters to work. I believe I'm going to send them after the Terrorgeist and Manfred for the rest of the game. I just want to harass and slowly whittle them down. My army's getting ready. I was trying to get some shots in on them and pulled them out. I'll try and hit the Grave Guard if I can. Those are a key unit he has. And with my Quarters, I do believe I'm aiming that at the Cryptors because they just don't have any armor. And again, I'll keep my gyrocopters on this Terrorgeist. I just want to keep some harass going non-stop, keep some damage going into there, so at some point he's going to want to move him. And look at this, it's just beautiful. My Thane has done his job already. He's got these 3 units attacking him, and he's going to tank that damage all day. You know, it's fantastic. And my line has engaged. His Skeleton Warriors are going to do absolutely nothing. Now I popped my buff here, 44% damage resistance. I shouldn't have done that a little bit early on that. But, you know, it's a small mistake. Small mistakes can add up. And my Thane is fighting this Necromancer. I believe they disengage at some point. He's bringing his Grave Guard around, and I figure I might as well get some shots into him. So I think my Thunders, they're going to go back and forth between firing and obstructed. This is the one issue you can have with Thunders. Probably should have pulled him back and put him on Manfred. Got my 15 armor, and I'll pop that armor buff as frequently as you can. Now, I'm going to just put it into slow motion and go look at some of the battle. And this is, I mean, these Thanes are really fantastic. I mean, he's not taking hardly any damage. You know, he's already been fighting some Cryptors, and now he's fighting Manfred, and he's fought the Necromancer. He's basically tied up these units, which is what I want him to do. He's doesn't have the most damage because he doesn't have armor piercing, but he's got 3 lives, so any damage put on him is wasted damage. So I want to do that as much as possible. Now, if we look over here, you know, these Skeleton Warriors, they just can't do anything against the Longbeards. I mean, literally, they can't do anything at all. My Longbeards they've got 55 kills, and these guys have 2. It's not even worth it to bring them. Now, zombies I can get because they're a lot cheaper, and they will tire the unit out a little bit, but these guys are still active. I mean, now I've popped my Stand Your Ground, 36% melee. I want to keep popping those as much as I can. Now he's going to bring in his Terrorgeist to rip this side of, or is that man for the Terrorgeist? Yep. To rip this side of my line apart. And, you know, my Hodors here are going to, all they got to do is hold this line for a little while. And he's missed his opportunity. The Grave Guards are not active yet. His cavalry is still coming around. I think he's microing in here, worried about the Thane, and of course his Lord is going to be taking fire, I believe. I'm not sure where my gyrocopters are right now, where they're aiming, but basically I see him bringing his Grave Guard in. I know I gotta do something, and I was sending after the Terrorgeist. and I was sending my Slayers after him as well. I wanted to get some damage on him. I've got my Thunders pointed at him, and I've chased him off. Now, I've got my Gyrocopters fighting up here and my Thane. Manfred is fully occupied, and now he's going to come in on this side. And here's where the charges start coming. I was a little bit worried about this. My Longbeards don't have the anti-charge, so I figured he'd be able to get a lot of damage. But I had set up in here because there's rocks and trees, and it's hard to get off good charges. I've already got my second use of the 44% damage negation, and it's really effective. Like, these Hodors are lasting for a very long time, and they're all by themselves. They're up against a fantastic unit of Graveguard. They've been charged by Black Knights, and they're still on half health. I definitely bring my Slayers over to handle these Black Knights, and my Longbeards, I need to hit these Graveguard. On this side, like, this is very telling. These Graveguard are 10 times the unit the Dwarf Warriors are, and Dwarf Warriors are, holding up reasonably well. I mean, they're gonna die, but they're holding up. Hit my Rune of Oath and Steel. Manfred is already taking damage, but I'm gonna keep the pressure on him. He's got to do something, and when you're under constant fire, even though it's just a little damage at a time, and I know he can regenerate, it does get to you. It can make you make bad decisions. And here, at some point, where's his other unit? Does he have both Black Knights in here? Yeah. Here he makes a pretty significant mistake. He does get the charge off, but he just leaves them sitting in there for quite some time. He brings Manfred over. He wants to get something done. Everything's going poorly on this side. The Graveguard is getting totally demolished by these Longbeards. His Graveguard on this side, the Dwarf Warriors are holding out, and I brought in these Longbeards to supplement because there's nothing else coming into this line. I'll just slow-mo it a little bit, and we'll go in here and look. I believe Thorgrim is just tanking this out like a boss. He does magic damage, which isn't really important here, but these Crypt Horrors and Necromancer, Skeleton Warriors, he has so much melee defense, and he has the double buff on attack, so he has 66 attack himself. He's just really, really strong. I'm going to work out that my Thunders are here, pull them back into this position so I can get some shots, and pull my Quarrelers back to try and get some shots. My Longbeards, I'm trying to just reform my lineup a bit. I know I'm good on this side. I feel I'm good on this side, and here you can see the mistake. These Black Knights have been left in too long, and now they're starting to really feel it. Now my Runesmith is tanking some of that damage, and my Thunder is even, but here come the buffs again. Armor and 44% damage resistance, and just keeping on cycling these buffs, it just helps snowball the entire battle because they're not doing any damage to me for the time that I'm under that buff and I'm doing damage to them. So I'm repositioning my Quarrelers, getting some shots on Manfred. Everything else is crumbling, and it's just, when it goes with the Vamps, one last shot, everything dies all at once, and that's it. Now, I really think the Dwarfs are really strong against the vampire accounts. I know there's different ways to set up your vampire army, and this, isn't the best. But he had some good units, like Crypt Horrors are no joke, and these Graveguard are fantastic. Black Knights, great unit. Terrorgeist, I don't know. Manfred, I think he's very popular. Like, this isn't a long ways off of a good army. I think it has some really good elements, and I've faced other vampire count armies and not had a problem. With the Rune of Wrath and Ruin, I cast that a number of times. I don't know how many times I hit it during the battle. My Thane never got any kills, but he was fighting lords for most of the time in those Crypt Horrors early. He did his job. He used one potion during that battle, I think, but he held up their front line. That's just all I want him to do, is to separate his troops if I can and just break up the charge. My Thane, or my Runesmith, I might have been a little too aggressive with him or getting him into combat. you don't want him in a lot of combat, as always. And Thorgrim, all these kills would have been against the Crypt Horrors, and he tanks things like a boss. He's so good if he doesn't get sniped out or dive bombed by 6 lords. And my Hodors even did really good. Surprising 36 kills. Like, these guys were fighting the Graveguard, and these Graveguard are no joke. But my Longbeards, again, the heroes of the battle. I know these are lots of skeletons, but they did fantastic. And my backline, these Slayers were fighting, the Slayers and Longbeards were fighting Graveguard, Cavalry, the Terrorgeist when he landed, and they did a fantastic job again. Now my Thunders, I didn't use incredibly well in this battle. Should have been on top of them. Like, they got mixed up and everything, and I think that was I could have done better on there. Though my Quarrelers, they got tied up too. I mean, I just didn't micromanage these guys well enough. I think I could have done a lot better with them, but we did not too bad. And these gyrocopters did really good. Maybe it wasn't a feature battle for them because I dropped some bombs on Crypt Horrors, who was an absolute waste of anything at all. But you live, you learn. But you can see they ranked up. They were on Karstein the entire match, and they kept him down. And you see when his morale kind of went. I mean, his whole army just instantly evaporated. And they were on the Terrorgeist somewhat, but they were just solid, and they just got free shots all game. And to rank up is really pretty big deal. Like, your unit has done some work when they've ranked up. As far as his army goes, Skeleton Warriors just super weak. These guys did good. They beat up my Hodors, so they got a lot of kills. The Black Knights, not so good. That you saw in that second part, he left them in the wrong place and just forgot about them, and then they got eaten alive. Crypt Horrors was the unit I was focused on. I think I did a reasonable job. That's where I engaged Thorgrim. I used my Rune of Wrath and Ruin on them and tried to maintain everything on them to minimize the amount of kills they were going to get, because they were going to be a key part of his army. The Terrorgeist I didn't really know how to handle, but I think it wasn't used fantastically, and that because of that he didn't get the kills that he could have. And of course Manfred never got any kills, and his Necromancer got one. I'm not sure all the magic he used. I know the Vampire Counts have some really strong hero sniping magic. They have some really strong line demolishing magic, which is, both would have been really good in this matchup. And I'm at some point I'm going to fight someone who's going to use that. I've had guys try to use it on me, not to effect. I mean, one time I caught it with my 44% damage mitigation buff, and one time he just misfired and it didn't go down my line. But at some point I'm going to go up against that. But as far as the vampire accounts go, I mean, the Dwarfs do have magic resistance. They have great leadership. They have the units that counter his units. In the Slayers, the gyrocopters are always going to be effective, unless they bring like a massive amount of bats. But even if he brings like 4 units of bats, I can kite them back, and my Quarrelers are going to obliterate those bats. And even if they land them on my Quarrelers and tie them up, I've only got 2 units. These guys will demolish those bats pretty quickly because they have plus 16 melee attack, so they're gonna do really good. So I'm not really worried about too many flying units. So I think, from my perspective, from the battles that I've played, I feel like my strongest matchup as the Dwarfs is against the Vampire Counts. I know it feels good. I don't need artillery to make him come to me. Just 2 units of gyros. I have the answer to every question. So I do like this matchup, and it suits my playstyle. Anyways, hope you found that interesting, and I'll see you soon.